In the year 2157, humanity found itself standing trial before the Galactic Council of Allied Species. The massive circular chamber housed representatives from over 30 spacefaring civilizations, all of whom regarded the human delegation with obvious distrust. Admiral John Mason stood tall despite the tension, his weathered face betraying no emotion as he faced the assembled aliens. Beside him, diplomat Olivia Bennett clutched her datapad tightly, her knuckles white with strain. "The evidence against the human species is substantial," announced High Counselor Vrax, a tall, gaunt being with iridescent skin. "We have reviewed your historical records spanning thousands of years. The pattern is unmistakable." Mason exchanged a glance with Bennett. They had prepared for this moment for weeks, but the reality of defending humanity's entire existence before this tribunal felt overwhelming. "Species Representative Bennett, do you wish to offer a defense before this council renders judgment?" asked Vrax. Bennett stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Esteemed counselors, humanity acknowledges our troubled past. We do not deny our history contains violence and conflict, but we ask you to consider our progress. In just the last 2 centuries, we have progress," interrupted Counselor Thex, a massive amphibian whose translucent skin revealed pulsing organs beneath. "Your species achieved faster than light travel merely 30 years ago, yet you have already established colonies on 17 worlds without seeking permission." "Worlds unclaimed by any council race," Mason interjected. "We followed all published guidelines for expansion." A ripple of disapproving clicks and whistles spread through the chamber. "The issue before us is not territorial," continued Vrax. "It is biological. Genetic analysis confirms humans possess neural structures that correlate with aggression, territorial behavior, and unpredictable emotional responses at levels unseen in any council species." Bennett tried again. "Many of those same traits drove our rapid technological advancement and problem-solving abilities. We offer these strengths to the galactic community." The small, insectoid counselor Six rose from her perch. "We have observed your media transmissions. Your entertainment glorifies conflict. Your children play games simulating warfare. Your most celebrated historical figures are conquerors and warriors." "Not all of them," Bennett countered. "We also celebrate healers, scientists, and peacemakers." "As exceptions," Vrax noted coldly. "Not the rule." The council called for a recess to deliberate. Mason and Bennett retreated to a small antechamber where they were joined by their advisor, Dr. Frank Nichols, an expert in tenopsychology. "It's not going well," Nichols muttered. "They've already decided." "There must be something else we can offer," Bennett said desperately. "Trade agreements, technological exchange." "They don't want what we have," Mason replied. "They want us contained." When they returned to the chamber, the atmosphere had grown even heavier. Vrax stood at the center of the room, flanked by the 7 senior counselors. "By vote of 28-3, this council finds the human species poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability," he announced. "Humanity is hereby restricted to its home solar system for a probationary period of no less than 500 years. A stunned silence fell over the human delegation. "A quarantine zone will be established beyond your system's heliopause," Vrax continued. "Automated beacons will monitor compliance. Any human vessel attempting to cross this boundary will be destroyed without warning." Mason stepped forward. "You're condemning us to slow extinction. Our system alone cannot sustain our population growth or resource needs indefinitely." "That is not the Council's concern," replied Vrax dispassionately. "This session is concluded." As they boarded their ship for the journey home, Bennett finally broke down. "How do we tell Earth they've essentially sentenced us to death?" Mason stared out at the stars, his jaw set with determination. "We tell them this isn't the end. It's a beginning." He turned to her, eyes blazing with resolve. "They think they've caged us. They have no idea what humans can do when backed into a corner." 10 years after the Galactic Council's banishment, Earth faced a growing crisis. Billions of humans crowded onto a planet with dwindling resources. The quarantine beacons floated silently beyond Pluto, cutting humanity off from the stars. William Carter stood at the viewport of Luna Base, watching Earth rotate slowly below. As director of the newly formed Human Expansion Initiative, he carried the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. "The latest population projections, sir," said his assistant, handing him a tablet, "will exceed sustainable limits within 15 years. Carter nodded grimly. "And the Council has rejected our 7th appeal for limited expansion rights." "They didn't even respond this time," the assistant replied. Carter turned as the doors slid open. Dr. Lisa Reeves entered, her face alight with excitement despite the dark circles under her eyes. "Tell me you have good news, Doctor," Carter said. "Better than good," Reeves replied, activating a holographic display. "We've cracked it." The projection showed a spacecraft surrounded by a shimmering field. "The phase shift technology works. We can mask our energy signatures and pass through the quarantine line undetected." Carter studied the display. "You're certain?" "We've sent 3 automated probes past the beacons. None triggered an alert," Reeves confirmed. "The cloaking technology renders our ships invisible to their sensors." For the first time in years, Carter felt hope stir. "How soon can we adapt this to colony ships?" 6 months for the first 2 vessels. The UES Pioneer and UES Pathfinder are already being retrofitted. Carter made his decision. "Begin crew selection immediately. Priority to colonists with agricultural, engineering, and medical backgrounds." "Sir," his assistant interjected, "if the Council discovers this." "They'll destroy us anyway if we stay here and slowly starve," Carter replied firmly. "At least this way, some of us survive." 6 months later, under cover of darkness, the first colony ships slipped away from Earth. Each carried 2,000 colonists in cryostasis and enough supplies to establish a foothold on worlds beyond Council space. The Pioneer headed toward the Epsilon Eridani system, while the Pathfinder set course for Tau Ceti. Carter watched from mission control as the ships vanished into the blackness. "Now we wait," he whispered. The first transmission arrived 9 months later, heavily encrypted and compressed into a millisecond burst to avoid detection. The Pioneer had successfully established New Haven, the first human colony beyond the quarantine. The Pathfinder reported similar success at Liberty Point. Over the next decade, more ships followed, each more sophisticated than the last. Human settlements spread to unclaimed systems far from Council patrols. A shadow network formed, colonies trading resources and knowledge while maintaining absolute secrecy. 20 years after the first ships departed, Samantha Carter took over the expansion initiative from her aging father. Under her leadership, humanity developed new technologies untethered from Council restrictions. The hidden colonies thrived, developing unique cultures adapted to their new worlds. We now have 37 established colonies with a total population of nearly 10 million, Samantha reported to Earth's unified government. "Our resource pipeline is stable, and we've mapped dozens of potential expansion sites. And still no detection by Council forces?" asked President Laura Mitchell. "We've had 3 near encounters," Samantha replied. "Each time, our ships went dark and avoided confrontation. The Council remains ignorant of our diaspora." "How long can we maintain this secrecy?" another official asked. "Indefinitely, if necessary," Samantha said confidently. "Each generation of colonists is more adapted to their new worlds than the last. We're developing technologies the Council has never imagined." As the meeting concluded, Samantha reviewed the latest reports from the colonies. New Haven had just launched its first locally built starship. Liberty Point had developed enhanced agriculture that doubled crop yields. From the seeds of desperation, something remarkable was growing. "They meant to contain us," she thought, echoing the words her father often repeated. "Instead, they forced us to become something greater than we ever would have been." 50 years after humanity's banishment, Captain Daniel Wright guided his exploration vessel through the uncharted Arcturus system. The ship, named Horizon, represented the best technology the hidden human colonies had developed, faster and more advanced than anything the Council races possessed. "Anything on long-range sensors, Alexis?" Wright asked his navigation officer. "Nothing organic, Captain, but I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the fourth planet," Alexis replied, adjusting her console. "Definitely artificial, but ancient. The patterns don't match any known civilization." Wright leaned forward in his command chair. "Council species?" "No, sir. The energy signature is unlike anything in our database." Wright made a quick decision. "Prepare a landing team. I want to see this firsthand." Hours later, Wright led a 6-person team to the surface. The planet was a barren desert world, its atmosphere thin but breathable. They followed the energy readings to a massive structure half buried in sand, a building of impossible dimensions constructed from a material that seemed to shimmer between solid and translucent. "This architecture doesn't match any Council race," said Dr. Grace Howard, the team's xenorchaeologist. She ran her scanner over the entrance. "These markings suggest it's at least 50,000 years old." "Can we get inside?" Wright asked. Howard studied the sealed doorway. "I believe so. The control mechanism is still active, just dormant." After hours of careful work, the massive doors slid open with surprising smoothness. Inside, the team discovered a vast complex filled with technology far beyond their understanding. Corridors stretched for kilometers, leading to chambers with machines that hummed softly despite millennia of abandonment. "This is incredible," Howard whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This must be a precursor site." "Precursors?" Wright asked. "A theoretical civilization mentioned in some Council texts, a species that supposedly achieved technological advancement beyond anything known, then vanished mysteriously long before any current races achieved space travel." Howard approached a central console. "Most Council scientists consider them mythical." Wright watched as Howard carefully interfaced her equipment with the alien technology. Mythical or not, they were definitely here. Days turned into weeks as the team explored the facility. Howard made breakthrough after breakthrough, deciphering the precursors' language and technological principles. Their understanding of energy manipulation and matter conversion completely outclasses anything the Council possesses, Howard explained during a briefing. They developed ways to harness vacuum energy and manipulate gravity at the quantum level. "Can we understand it? Replicate it?" Wright asked. Howard nodded excitedly. "That's what's remarkable. Their systems are designed to be intuitive. It's almost as if they meant for their technology to be found and used by later species. But the Council never discovered this. They may have found precursor sites, but I suspect they couldn't fully comprehend the technology," Howard replied. "The precursors' approach requires intuitive leaps that the rigid thinking of many Council species would struggle with. Human creativity might actually give us an advantage in understanding their work." The discovery was too important to keep to one team. Wright sent encrypted messages to human leadership, and within months, a secret research outpost was established on the planet. The best scientific minds from across human space gathered to study the precursor technology. Wright oversaw the construction of a permanent base, which he named Prometheus Station. In human mythology, Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. He explained to Howard as they watched researchers unravel more precursor secrets. "This knowledge will be our fire." Howard nodded, studying a holographic display of precursor energy matrices. The Council thought they were containing a primitive violent species. They had no idea they were limiting beings perfectly suited to inherit the legacy of the most advanced civilization the galaxy has ever known. Wright smiled. "And when we finally reveal ourselves, they'll discover just how badly they misjudged us." A century after humanity's banishment, the scattered colonies had grown into a powerful hidden network. What began as desperate outposts had flourished into dozens of thriving worlds connected by secret hyperspace routes. Humans called their alliance the Shadow Commonwealth, a civilization that existed in the blind spots of Galactic Council surveillance. Chancellor Eric Morgan stood in the central chamber of Artemis Station, the hidden capital built inside a hollowed asteroid in the Perseus Arm. Representatives from 37 human worlds gathered before him for the Centennial Assembly. Each colony had developed its own culture and specialties, yet all remained united by their shared heritage and purpose. 100 years ago, the Council believed they had contained us. Morgan addressed the Assembly. Today, our territory spans farther than many Council member species. Our population exceeds 200 million across 42 settlements and stations. Applause echoed through the chamber. Morgan raised his hand for quiet. Precursor technology has transformed our capabilities. The Prometheus Research Collective has successfully implemented gravity manipulation that makes our ships faster than anything in Council space. Our matter converters can create resources from stellar matter that Council worlds still fight wars over. On the massive display behind him, images appeared of the Commonwealth's latest achievements. Cities nestled in terraformed valleys, enormous orbital shipyards, and scientific installations studying phenomena the Council had never mastered. But our greatest advantage remains secrecy. Morgan continued, his voice growing serious. As long as the Council believes us contained, we continue to grow stronger without interference. After the public session, Morgan met with his inner council in a secure room. General Ashley Rivera, head of Commonwealth Defense, activated a classified briefing. Council military activity has increased near these 3 sectors, she said, indicating red points on a star map. They're hunting pirates, not us, but their patrols are coming dangerously close to our aura and supply route. Can we reroute? Morgan asked. Already done, Rivera confirmed. But these close calls are happening more frequently as the Council expands. Intelligence Director Natalie Frost spoke next. Her agency maintained a network of operatives who moved invisibly through Council space, gathering information. My agents report growing tensions within the Council, Frost explained. 3 member species are pushing for exploration into regions where we have settlements, not because they suspect us, but due to resource pressures in their territories. Morgan frowned. How much longer can we maintain our secrecy? 5 years with certainty, Frost replied. 10 with luck. Eventually, a Council ship will stumble upon one of our worlds. It's inevitable. The room fell silent as the reality sank in. For a century, humanity had built its strategy around remaining hidden. Now, that approach had a rapidly approaching expiration date. Then perhaps, said Dr. Alan Reynolds, head of the Prometheus Collective, we should consider revealing ourselves on our terms rather than waiting to be discovered. Morgan looked at him sharply. You're suggesting we announce our presence to the Council. From a position of strength, Reynolds clarified. Our technology now surpasses theirs in virtually every category. We could approach them as equals or superiors, rather than as the primitives they vanished. The debate lasted hours. Some Council members argued passionately for continued secrecy. Others believed the time had come to emerge from the shadows. We've spent a century preparing, Rivera said. Our defense fleet contains ships that could outmatch entire Council battle groups. If they respond with hostility, we can defend ourselves. Morgan listened to all arguments before responding. I won't risk an unnecessary war. But Director Frost is right. Discovery is inevitable. We'll accelerate preparations for first contact, but won't initiate it yet. When the moment comes, we'll be ready to reveal humanity not as supplicants begging for raid mission, but as a power that has flourished despite their attempt to contain us. As the meeting adjourned, Morgan gazed at the star map. The blue dots representing human worlds were scattered across 3 spiral arms, hidden in plain sight among thousands of stars. Soon, very soon, the greatest secret in the galaxy would be revealed. The mining colony on Arcturus IV operated in constant fear of discovery. Though located far from established Council trade routes, the settlement of 8,000 humans lived with the risk that their existence violated the century-old quarantine. Still, The planet's rich deposits of rare elements made it too valuable to abandon. On an ordinary work cycle, sensors detected the approach of unknown vessels. Alarms blared across the colony's central hub. 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace, announced the monitoring officer. Configuration matches Council patrol vessels. Colony Administrator Peter Hayes rushed to the control center, his face pale. How did they find us? Are they hailing? No communication. They're scanning us intensively. Hayes made a quick decision. Send the emergency signal to Commonwealth Command. Begin evacuation procedures. Get as many people to the shelters as possible. Before the colony could fully respond, the lead council vessel transmitted a message. The face of a Thexian commander appeared on screen, amphibian features contorted in what humans had learned was their expression of disgust. Human settlement. You exist in violation of Galactic Council Quarantine Order 7329. You have 1 standard hour to surrender before we commence orbital bombardment. The transmission ended abruptly. Hayes stared at the blank screen. They're not even giving us a chance to explain. Minimum evacuation time is 3 hours, his security chief said grimly. We can't get everyone out. Halfway across the sector, Admiral Kevin Blackwood was conducting training exercises with the Commonwealth's First Fleet when the distress signal arrived. His flagship, the Defiance, was the most advanced warship humans had ever built, incorporating precursor-derived technology that the Council couldn't comprehend. How long to reach Arcturus? Blackwood demanded. 28 minutes at emergency speed, his navigator replied. All ships prepare for combat jump, Blackwood ordered. Inform Commonwealth Command that first contact is now unavoidable. Back on Arcturus IV, the colonists watched in horror as the Council ships moved into attack position. Hayes had managed to evacuate only the children and a portion of the civilian population to underground shelters. Incoming transmission from Commonwealth forces, the communications officer announced suddenly. First Fleet will arrive in 15 minutes. We're ordered to hold out. Hayes felt a mixture of relief and dread. Help was coming, but this meant the Commonwealth would be forced to reveal itself to the Council. Exactly when the Council ships began their first attack run, space seemed to twist as 5 Commonwealth warships materialized between the colony and its attackers. The Defiance led the formation, its sleek hull gleaming against the darkness. Council vessels, this is Admiral Kevin Blackwood of the Human Commonwealth. Blackwood transmitted on all frequencies. The colony is under our protection. Cease your attack immediately. On the Council flagship, Commander Zex stared in disbelief at the human ships that had appeared from nowhere. They were unlike any vessels he had ever seen, with configurations that defied standard design principles. Impossible, he whispered. The humans are quarantined. Sir, his sensor officer reported with growing alarm. Those ships are generating power readings far beyond our capabilities. Their weapon systems are. I can't even classify them. Zex regained his composure. This changes nothing. The quarantine violation must be punished. All ships, open fire. The Council vessels launched their attack, energy weapons blazing toward the Commonwealth ships. What happened next would be reported throughout Council space with shock and disbelief. The Commonwealth ships didn't dodge. Instead, the energy blasts simply warped around their hulls, diverted by gravitic shields based on precursor technology. Blackwood gave the Council ships one final warning. When they continued their attack, he gave the order to respond. The Defiance fired a single precision shot that disabled the Council flagship's propulsion without destroying the vessel. The other Commonwealth ships neutralized the remaining Council vessels with similar precision. Transmit to all Council frequencies, Blackwood ordered. The human quarantine is officially over. We will defend all our settlements with full force. Chancellor Morgan will address the Galactic Council within 1 standard day. Any further aggression against human worlds will be met with overwhelming response. As the message went out, Blackwood knew everything had changed. A century of hiding had ended in a single battle. Humanity had just announced its return to galactic affairs. not as supplicants, but as a power unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. As news of the Arcturus incident spread, the Galactic Council erupted in panic. Emergency sessions were called, and military forces mobilized across Council space. Species that had believed humans safely contained now faced the shocking reality. Humanity had not only escaped quarantine but had built a vast interstellar nation with technology that surpassed their own. Admiral Victoria Russell stood on the bridge of the Commonwealth dreadnought Invictus, watching as her fleet took position around the human colony of Nuterra. Council forces had attacked 3 human settlements in the past week. Each assault had been repelled with minimal Commonwealth casualties. Status report, Russell commanded. Council battle group approaching from Vector 227, her tactical officer reported. 18 vessels, primarily Thexian and Vraxian design. Russell studied the tactical display. Their largest formation yet. They're trying to make a statement, Admiral, said her executive officer. This is the 7th Vraxian battle fleet, their most prestigious military force. Russell nodded. And we'll make a statement in return. Battle stations. As alarm klaxons sounded throughout the ship, Russell opened a fleet-wide channel. All vessels maintain defensive formation Sigma. Weapons authorized for disabling shots only. Remember our objective, to demonstrate superiority without unnecessary casualties. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace in tight formation, their weapons immediately charging. Their commander transmitted a demand for surrender that Russell ignored. Instead, she ordered a new tactic developed from precursor technology. Execute Operation Mirror, she commanded. Specialized emitters on the Commonwealth ships activated, creating a quantum field that distorted the targeting systems of the Council vessels. Their first volley of weapons fire scattered harmlessly into space, missing the human ships entirely. Their confusion should last approximately 3 minutes, the science officer reported. Field cannot be maintained longer without system burnout. That's all the time we need, Russell replied. All ships execute precision strikes as planned. What followed was not a battle but a demonstration. Commonwealth ships moved with impossible agility, their gravitic drives allowing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. One by one, they disabled the Council vessels with targeted attacks that neutralized weapons and propulsion systems while leaving life support intact. Within 12 minutes, the entire Council fleet floated powerless, their crews shocked by the swift and complete defeat. Open a channel to the Vraxian flagship, Russell ordered. The face of Fleet Commander Vrax appeared on screen, his iridescent skin pale with what humans had learned was the Vraxian expression of shock. This conflict is unnecessary, Russell stated calmly. We have no desire to destroy Council forces or territories. We seek recognition of our sovereignty and the right to exist freely in space, rights your Council denied us a century ago. Your technology, Vrax managed to say. It's impossible. No, Russell corrected, merely beyond your understanding. Your disabled ships will be towed to neutral space with emergency power and supplies. Consider today's outcome before launching further attacks. As Russell's fleet departed, leaving the crippled Council vessels behind, a different kind of battle was taking place in diplomatic chambers across the galaxy. Paul Winters had once been a historian before becoming the Commonwealth's chief diplomat. Now he moved carefully through the fragmented Council alliance, meeting secretly with representatives from species who had begun to question the wisdom of fighting humans. The Thexians and Vraxians push for total war, said the Xanthi representative, a crystalline being who communicated through light patterns. But many of us see this as madness. Your Admiral Russell could have destroyed that fleet but chose restraint. The Commonwealth has no interest in conquest, Winters assured them. Only in securing our rightful place among galactic civilizations. The Council forbade your existence outside your solar system, yet you built a thriving civilization in secret, the Xanthi observed. Now you possess technology that makes our most advanced systems look primitive. Winters nodded. We adapted. We had no choice. Several Council species are considering breaking the united position against humans, the Xanthi revealed. The Novelli, My People, and 3 others. We seek assurances of favorable relations should we recognize the Commonwealth. You would have not just recognition, but preferred trading status. Winters promised. Access to certain technologies. Mutual defense agreements. As Winters conducted his quiet diplomacy, the military conflict reached its inevitable climax at Proxima Centauri, humanity's first extrasolar colony. The Council committed its combined fleet, 300 ships drawn from loyal species, in a final effort to crush the human rebellion. They faced Admiral Blackwood's forces, outnumbered 3-1, but equipped with technology a century beyond their opponents. The battle lasted just 4 hours. By its end, half the Council fleet had been disabled, a quarter had retreated, and the remainder surrendered. The war that was meant to contain humanity instead revealed its true power, forever changing the galactic order. The Great Hall in New Geneva on Earth sparkled with the light of 1,000 crystalline chandeliers. Representatives from over 50 species filled the chamber, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic life. Many wore the formal attire of their homeworlds, while others displayed the new insignia of the Terran stellar empire, a rising phoenix surrounded by stars. 5 years had passed since the Treaty of New Geneva officially ended the war between humanity and the Galactic Council. What had begun as humanity's struggle for recognition had transformed the political landscape of the known galaxy. The Council itself had dissolved, unable to maintain unity after its military defeat and the defection of key member species. Eric Morgan walked slowly toward the central podium, the newly crafted imperial seal gleaming on his formal uniform. At 67, his hair had turned completely silver, but his steps remained steady and purposeful. As the first emperor of the Terran stellar empire, this day marked the culmination of humanity's remarkable journey. 105 years ago, Morgan began, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. Representatives of humanity stood before the Galactic Council and were judged unworthy of the stars. A murmur passed through the alien delegates. Many lowered their eyes or changed color in what humans now understood as expressions of shame or regret. Today, we open the first session of the Imperial Senate, not as conquerors, but as architects of a new galactic order founded on cooperation and shared progress. The Senate chamber itself represented this philosophy, built on the site of the old United Nations building. Its design incorporated architectural elements from every member species. The ceiling displayed a perfect holographic representation of the galaxy, with the territories of the Empire highlighted in soft blue light, spanning 3 spiral arms and encompassing worlds that had once belonged to 17 former Council species. Our empire is not built on military might alone, Morgan continued. Though our forces secured our freedom, it is our innovation and inclusivity that have attracted so many worlds to our banner. He gestured to the gathered representatives, former Council members who had recognized human sovereignty early in the conflict, species who had been oppressed under Council rule, and even the Vraxians and Thexians who had finally accepted the new reality after their decisive defeat. The precursor technology that gave us advantage was not hoarded, but shared. The prosperity it created belongs to all worlds under our protection. Ambassador Zix of the insectoid Kithri rose from her seat. Once a vocal critic of humanity in the Council, she now served as Vice-Chancellor of the Empire. The Kithri once feared human unpredictability, she acknowledged, her translator converting her clicks and whistles to smooth standard English. We now understand it was exactly this trait that allowed humans to comprehend precursor science that baffled our rigid thinking for centuries. What we judged as weakness was in fact your greatest strength. Morgan smiled at the irony. The banishment that was meant to contain us instead forced us to develop resilience and innovation beyond anything we might have achieved otherwise. In our darkest hour, we found our greatest light. As Morgan formally opened the first Senate session, he thought back to the day when Admiral Mason and Diplomat Bennett returned from that fateful council meeting with news of humanity's vanishment. How hopeless it had seemed then, how impossible today's reality would have appeared. The first item of Senate business was the approval of an ambitious expedition beyond the galactic rim, a mission to search for the lost precursors themselves. The project would unite scientists from 30 species under human leadership, venturing into the unknown together. As the voting commenced, Morgan stepped away from the podium and walked to the great glass wall overlooking the rebuilt skyline of Geneva. Somewhere in the Arcturus system, the descendants of those first Council attackers now lived peacefully under Empire protection. The colony they had tried to destroy had grown into a thriving world of 2 million. "We did not just survive," Morgan whispered to himself, watching as the Senate overwhelmingly approved the expedition. "We created something greater than ourselves." The empire that rose from humanity's banishment had become not just the most powerful force in the galaxy, but perhaps its greatest hope, uniting diverse species in common cause and turning ancient enemies into allies. The journey that began with exile had led to the stars and beyond, proving that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology or military might, but its unbreakable spirit and endless capacity to adapt, overcome, and forge new paths where none existed before.